By this point in the course, you have something many beginners do not: clarity. You understand what the ISM expects, how IRAP assesses it, and what mistakes to avoid. This final lecture answers the most important practical question: where do you actually start? If you are new to the ISM, the biggest risk is not doing too little. It is trying to do everything at once. The ISM is comprehensive by design, and if you approach it without structure, it will feel overwhelming. The goal is not speed, the goal is controlled, confident progress. The first step in implementing the ISM is not technology, it is scope and intent. You start by clearly defining what you are responsible for. This might be a single system, a small environment, or a business service. You do not start with the entire organization unless you already have mature governance in place. Once scope is clear, you focus on understanding business context. You ask what the system does, who relies on it, and what would happen if it failed or was compromised. This is not a technical exercise. It is a conversation with stakeholders. Without this understanding, every control decision becomes guesswork. From there, you identify accountability early. Even as a beginner, you must know who owns risk, who owns systems, and who provides security advice. You do not need perfect role maturity on day one, but you do need clarity. Security improves dramatically when responsibility is visible. Next, you move into baseline risk thinking. You do not need a complex risk register immediately. You need a simple understanding of confidentiality, integrity, and availability requirements. This gives you a lens through which every control decision will later make sense. At this stage, beginners often feel pressure to implement controls. You should resist that urge. Instead, you read the ISM with intent, not detail. You focus on understanding the structure of controls, mandatory versus conditional expectations, and how risk acceptance works. This prevents costly misinterpretation later. Your next practical step is to establish minimum governance documentation. You do not write dozens of documents. You start with what matters most: a clear security policy, basic standards aligned to the ISM, and simple procedures for access, change, and incident handling. These documents do not need to be perfect. They need to be real. Once governance exists, you can move into high-impact control areas first. For beginners, identity and access management is almost always the best starting point. You ensure users are identifiable, privileges are limited, and access is reviewed. These actions reduce risk immediately and visibly. From there, you address endpoints and servers. You do not aim for perfect hardening on day one. You aim for consistent builds, patching discipline, and basic malware protection. Consistency matters more than sophistication at this stage. You then turn attention to logging and visibility. Even basic centralized logging for authentication, privilege access, and system changes provides enormous value. Logging early allows you to learn about your environment while building evidence organically. Cloud users should focus early on shared responsibility clarity. You document what the provider secures and what you must secure. You enable native logging, identity controls, and security features rather than assuming defaults are sufficient. This avoids one of the most common beginner failures. As you implement controls, you must also document gaps honestly. Not everything will be achievable immediately. The ISM allows this. You record what is missing, why it is missing, and how risk is being managed. This is not failure. This is correct ISM behavior. At this point, you begin building a living risk register, even if it is simple. Risks are identified, treated where possible, and accepted where necessary by the right authority. This register becomes the backbone of future IRAP readiness. Another important step is engaging security monitoring and incident planning early. You do not wait for maturity to plan for incidents. You define how incidents are reported, who responds, and how decisions are made. Even a basic plan is far better than improvisation. As a beginner, you should also establish a habit of regular review. Monthly or quarterly reviews of access, risk, and controls keep security alive. The ISM is not implemented once, it is operated continuously. When you feel pressure to be compliant, you should pause and reframe. Your goal is not compliance statements, your goal is confidence. Confidence that you understand your risks, confidence that controls are working, confidence that leaders know what they are accepting. Over time, as your implementation matures, you can expand scope, deepen controls, and prepare formally for IRAP assessment. When IRAP eventually occurs, it should feel like validation of work already done, not a scramble to catch up. One of the most important things to remember is that every mature ISM environment started as a beginner environment. No organization begins fully compliant. Maturity is built through steady, honest progress. The key takeaway from this lecture is this: start small, start honestly, and start with governance and risk. Tools and controls come later. Confidence comes from clarity, not speed. If you follow this roadmap, you will avoid the most common beginner mistakes, build genuine security maturity, and place yourself or your organization on a path towards sustainable IRAP ready operation. This is how the ISM is meant to be implemented. Not all at once, but deliberately, responsibly, and with confidence.